Hello. Thank you for joining me. If you're watching this video, I truly appreciate it. This video is going to be about Dana White, the great white, the great white shark. I have to say, lately Dana White's been on the news for the sport. He's been, quite the topic, especially since Dan Hardy. If you're a fan of the sport, you know what's going on with Dan Hardy, and there's also what's going on with John Jones and Luke Rockhold as well is in the news in relation to Dana White. And I wanna say weigh in on this. I mean, let me say first off, look, Dana White is if you add if you sum it all up, the positives, the negatives, there's no denying that Dana White has taken the sport uh, from a bad place to a better place. Okay, from nothing to something. Luna, come here. I can see that my dog is about to try and destroy something she shouldn't. So sorry about that. But he's certainly as a manager, as the top guy for the UFC, he has established the UFC as the undisputed leader in the sport, right? And with that position, he has elevated the sport from something that is seen as a product of contemporary culture, as a fringe sport, as something that your violent cousin who does karate might be into. But typical people, no, they watch basketball, they watch boxing, or something to this effect. So at the end of the day, um, Dana White and everyone else who's managing a business, whether small or large, or they're not making the right decisions 100% of the time. And there are certain, you can scrutinize managers and look at news reports about them and their media press releases and all this, and kind of get an idea of what kind of manager, what kind of person this is that is at the helm of the sport. And Dana White is not you know, he's not a very closed off individual. He's not camera shy. He does a lot of interviews typically after every big UFC. He's gonna do a post and pre press conference, and there's a lot. The guy is embraces the limelight. He thrives in it, and that's good. That's a positive aspect for the sport. He knows how to, and he sees importance into tapping into media, and he's done it, but in different forms of media. Uh, okay, so what I'm trying to say is, in the end, I mean, Dana White has, if you sum it all up, if you boil it all down, what's his contribution to the sport? I think it's positive. But as of late, okay, and the reason I'm posting this video is because Dana White has been shown to be such a cheap bastard, right? And look, I've never been a pro Dana White guy or a anti Dana White guy. I've never really had a side. I never chose a side to be on. I've been sort of neutral towards a guy, and actually leaning more towards a positive, given the fact that what he's done for the sport and all that. But lately, I mean, that doesn't excuse what's happening lately and how cheap he is. No, first it's the Dan Hardy situation, which I think is the biggest scandal among these things, these scandals, these cheap Dana White being cheap scandal, right? So Dan Hardy, if you haven't heard, he's recently been fired or removed from his UFC employment, his and with BT Sports as well. I'm not sure if he's still with BT Sports or because I've seen after the news, long after that, he has released some material that had BT Sports logos on it. So it's unclear to me whether that relationship is still existing or maybe finishing soon. I don't know. But the reason there's a scandal here is, um, Dan Hardy is at one time he was one of the premier names in the sport, right? And everyone remembers his fight with George St. Pierre that was in UFC 111. So it was GSP versus Dan Hardy, and the undercard was Frank Mir versus Shane Carwin. All four of them were sort of the big names of the time, right? This was back in 2010. Okay, so 2021, 2021, 11 years later, um, the sport has definitely changed in terms of fighter pay, but the report that Dan Hardy made or was paid only $24,000 for this fight. $24,000. Now, for a night of work, which this isn't. A fight is, especially at this level, it's never a night of work. Okay, it's months of work that you're preparing for a fight. Um, and you also have to consider this 24,000 goes to Dan Hardy and his team, right? And how many people are in the team? There's a head coach. There might be several trainers, well, a striking trainer, grappling trainer, strength and conditioning coach, different people. Maybe another fighter might be there as moral support, and all these people need to get paid. So at the end of the day, you gotta also consider that 24,000. What went to Dan Hardy was just a portion of that, right? The poor guy got his ass kicked by George St. Pierre, right? Uh, for such a small amount of money. It's unfortunate, right? Um, that happened. I feel bad for the guy. I feel bad for the guy. Nobody should have to do this. I mean, at this level, you want a person to at least not have to worry about money. But obviously, Dan Hardy, young guy, he's given this opportunity. He realizes that if I beat George St. Pierre, this is going to be a life changing, career changing accomplishment, right? Didn't happen, but still, uh, which is not a lot of people at the time I remember thought that Dan Hardy was going to beat GSP. And if you look at the fight, I mean, Dan Hardy put up a fight, but it wasn't a very good fight for him, basically. So at the end of the day, I don't think anyone doing championship level should be earning less than like 50 grand, right? There should be a standard. 24,000 is just laughable. It's laughable. I wouldn't fight. I wouldn't fight for that money. I wouldn't. It's just not practical. It's just not doable. I need to hire someone. I need to hire a training partner. I need to hire a coach. I need to work in a gym. I need equipment. I need whatever else to prepare for that fight, and it's expensive. And 24,000 just doesn't pay for that. I'll have to eat into my money, and there's not a lot of that. So essentially, the risk reward for me would be it's just not even imaginable, basically. But Dan Hardy took it. Um, so I want to say I think there's a class action lawsuit happening because of this situation, and um, and it's for me justified because um, I don't think any fighter should be treated this way, and I think whoever's behind this treatment should be, you know, it should be addressed. That person should be, I don't want to say punished, but there should be consequences to that kind of behavior. Okay, moving on. The other thing, with John Jones, this is the more recent thing that happened. Okay, but all these news reports have come out, close to each other, and part 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 of me thinks that that's intentional, or maybe you know Luke Rockhold and Dan Hart. Well, Luke Rockhold is jumping in at the right time also. But let's talk about John Jones, right? I mean, just quickly, so I did post a video about this, talking about or addressing people who are saying John Jones is scared of Francis Ngannou. And I do recommend you watch that video. Um, but with John Jones, just to, I'm sure most of you will know, but John Jones was sort of after Francis beat Stipe, he tweeted, "Show me the money, let's do this." Two tweets, uh, and in the post-fight press conference, Dana White essentially said, "You're scared of Francis, that's why you're saying, 'Show me the money.'" And for me, I totally disagree with what Dana did as a manager, as a strategic move to say that in the media. It's kind of like I don't know which fighter would have taken that well. And it really sounds very like schoolyard. Oh, you don't want to fight your chicken, kind of like what is this, man? We're talking about multi-million-dollar deals here, and you're acting like a schoolyard bully, or whatever. It's kind of revealing this whole John Jones, um, Dana White. This is not the first conflict they've had, but this whole relationship for me has shown not also some attitude problems with John Jones, but certainly Dana White, dude. Like, how are you handling this business? You know, clearly, give me that, Luna. You decide to go crazy now that I'm recording this. Why? Huh? Anyway, they have a long-term love-hate relationship, and for me, just watching it, I don't think like I don't agree with the way Dana White is sort of handling John Jones and how he handled the opportunity to have this big fight. Um, it's a big moneymaker. Him versus Ngannou will be a huge fight for the sport, and it's just like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Um, and I feel like it's when you bring up money to Dana, it's like it's just you just can't penetrate the guy, I don't know. But you got people like Khabib, people like Connor who have made a killing from the sport. So I guess I feel like Dana has a very short list of people that he puts as money makers, and maybe he has a list of like fighters who are other kinds of fighters and all this. Uh, Either way, um, that's another example. Dan Hardy is I think the most solid example of how cheap Dana White is. With John Jones, he's revealing himself as another revelation of how cheap he is. With Luke Rockhold now, this most people won't really know about this situation. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, maybe women, know who Luke Rockhold is because he's a model for Ralph Lauren. And basically, the press release here is that Luke Rockhold has been complaining about Dana White and the way he's sort of acting like a tyrant, or his business style is sort of like tyrannical, I guess is what he's saying. Um, Very gangster like, kind of kind of thing, way to deal with Dana White. He even said the reason I became a model and got this modeling contract with Ralph Lauren is because, to leverage myself. And look, I get it, dude. Like you're making big bucks with Ralph Lauren, so Dana sees that and says, "Look, I mean, I got to throw money at this guy if I want him to leave modeling and focus on fighting." It's the same thing with getting a job. If you apply for a job and get an interview and you tell them, "I'm currently employed now. I just want to explore other opportunities because the job I'm in, it's not really, whatever, for whatever reason, it's not fitting in with my career path or the career path I want." Versus telling someone at an interview, I've been unemployed for a couple months, I'm, looking for an opportunity now that's similar to what I had before. I mean, you will have the first guy saying, "I'm currently employed," automatically has more value to the employer because it says someone else is willing to pay this guy for something. All right. So for them, that's already like, that's a good, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say, right? It's the same thing with fighting. It's the same thing with anything. If you're making money somewhere else and someone asks you to drop that and do this thing that I'm involved in, versus like, "You're not doing shit. Why don't you come do this?" The first thing, you have more leverage. So, kudos to Luke Rockhold and the way he handled Dana White. Um, Whether he returns to fighting or not, I'm not really a huge fan of the guy. I mean, he's a pretty face. There's no denying that. He's a friggin' model. He was a surfer before a fighter, before he became a fighter. So, surely he's looked into modeling, and I'm sure he's garnered a fan base before fighting of people because of the way he looks. He's a very attractive guy. Um, but this is the third example, and these are just recent examples, right, that are on the news right now that you could look for yourself. So my my dog decided now to just explore the entire house and go to different rooms and decide what she wants to do. I'm sorry about the noise. Um, but yeah, these are three examples you could look at. I mean, even if you look at the way Dana White just chased Khabib in retirement. I mean, Khabib said it from that day when he announced it after beating Gagey, Justin Gagey, and it hasn't changed since. He's never gone back on that, and it's just really Dana White who's saying, "Hey, hey, hey, yeah, I know Khabib said that, but I'm still talking to him. I mean, I'm still throwing money at this thing, so wait for that." And the reason why is because Dana obviously sees Khabib as a moneymaker for the sport, and he's sort of chasing Khabib rather than just doing the honorable thing and just letting the guy go into retirement and leaving him alone, or letting him do whatever he wanted to do. He sort of made us all believe that there's this small chance when there never really was a small chance for him to come back or to go back on his announcement, and he just never really did. And you'd even see on the when the UFC officially said, "Oh yeah, officially Khabib is retired," and then he had a thing with Megan O'Leary, and Khabib kind of was like, "Yeah, it's like I said from the start, I retired. Nothing's really changed." And you could even see how he's a bit confused, like he has this confused, almost annoyed looking face when he was saying that. But yeah, go look at that interview, and yeah, I mean, the only guy who looks stupid there is Dana White chasing on something that wasn't there. Um, and that's another question, like how cheap doesn't really mean you don't want to pay someone. It's also like, oh, my moneymaker, I'm gonna look desperate. I'm gonna look like I'm so desperate because I don't want to lose this moneymaker. Like I'm, you know, that's what he's shown himself. that's the result of this whole Khabib thing too. Like it's like you're cheap, man. Like relax, dude. He's leaving. You'll find another fighter. But he's so scared to lose that moneymaker that he starts looking like a moron, honestly. Um, and there's other things to point at, really. I don't want to say Dana has to go. You know, at first, after hearing the Dan Hardy stuff, following the John Jones and the Luke Rockhold, I was kind of like, this guy's got to go. But I don't think so yet. Let's see if more is revealed about Dana White. But these three things, just these three things, and there's been other things in the past. Okay, I'm just talking about three things that came out in the last couple of weeks. So, um, yeah, dude. I mean, being cheap, you tell your boss because Dana White has the he has bosses too, right? And he's like, hey man, look, I've friggin' saved us $80,000. Dan Hardy signed it for 24, dude. Like he thinks that that's points for him. He doesn't realize that that goes bites him in the ass. You think that this impression that UFC is so cheap that they pay the fighters the way they do and they deal with their fighters the way they do? You think there's any positive to this? No, no. It makes the organization look shitty. Okay. And it's supposed to be an organization that has that flair, right? That's supposed to be like, hey, maybe the UFC doesn't have the best fighters out there, but um, they're throwing money at some fighters. I know they are superstars or media stars, so it's the most entertaining promotion. But he's also removing that. He's like, oh, they're not really paying them that much. So why are we watching this? You know? Um, yeah. So let's see, man. Let's see what happens next with Dana White. Hopefully, we. I wish more people would come out if there is stuff. Tell us. I'd love to hear, fighters who have been ripped off and all this. Let's hear it. But yeah, if there's more, I will be covering it. So stay tuned. But yeah, thank you again. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and yeah, see you soon. Bye bye.